So there's probably no better deer habitat than native shrubs. Today I'm walking out at the family farm and I want to highlight my 5 favorite shrubs for better deer habitat. So stick with me and I'll show you the 5 that really stand out on our farm. Alright, the first one I want to highlight is American plum. Look at this beautiful plum right here. This may be my favorite shrub. Actually, I like all 5 of them on this list, but this one has always been one that I've really enjoyed over the years. Native plum is one that is definitely highly selected as deer browse. You can see all these young plum shoots that have been browsed on pretty heavily. And another huge benefit of it is that it's thicket forming. And look at this, I'm walking between 2 plum rows right here, and it is absolutely loaded with young plum root suckers, and some of these I'm sure are from seed as well. Now this area had been mowed for a few years. Now the last 2 years it's been let go, and this is how quickly the plums have started to fill it back in. Which is great because you can see the parent trees. I mean, some of them look pretty healthy, but a lot of them are starting to look kind of sad and die back. So if we want to keep plums in this area, we need to let nature do its thing and the thicket start to take over in here. The plums are eaten by deer. I will note, don't expect them to be still around by the time your deer season opens unless you have a really early opener. We're mid-September here in Minnesota, and the plums are pretty well cleaned up by then. So the biggest benefit of the plums is the good woody browse that they provide and the nice cover they provide. One of the best deer bedding areas that we have on our farm is a natural plum thicket. That's about an acre, and the deer are in there heavy in regards to bedding. The one negative of plum is they can be tough to get established. You absolutely need to protect them, cage them if you want to get them going. Now these were away from an area that at the time when they were planted there wasn't much deer pressure. It's right by a highway, so all that was done was there was a weed mat actually laid down and the plums took off. So I'm actually looking at choke cherries over here. The plums took off and we were able to get them established, but most of the time the deer will smash the young plums, so you need to protect them, kind of baby them for a few years. And once you get that root system established, they can take off and be good for the rest of your life. But that's one of the huge benefits of shrubs, is that it keeps the cover right in the deer's face indefinitely. And like, you know, you compare that to woody regeneration, where it's a ticking clock, and eventually you got to reset that woody regeneration. Well, with shrubs, you keep the cover, you keep the food in the deer's face indefinitely, as long as you keep those shrubs alive. So here's one I've really started to like over the last handful of years, and that's Nannyberry. So what I like about Nannyberry is, again, actually all these shrubs that I'm going to talk about today are thicket forming shrubs. But this one is a pretty vigorous grower, so it's quicker to establish than American plum. So when you're wanting cover in an area, if you don't have Nannyberry and you decide to add it in, it establishes fairly quickly. And you can see right here, I got my parent plant back there. You can see how the regen is leaching out into this area of switchgrass that I got. In both sides, it's starting to leach out fairly heavily. Now this one does see a little bit of browse from the deer, and especially if you're in the north and like us, we have deer yard on us in the winter, then it gets hit pretty hard. But this one is a little bit more deer resistant than American plum. You know, it's still food. You can see some of these are getting nipped off, but this one establishes easier than plum, just because it's a faster grower and because it doesn't have the same appeal from a browse standpoint as American plum. You probably will still need to protect it, at least for that first year or two, just to get it established. But if you are in a lower deer density area, or even kind of one of those more middle of the road areas, you may be able to try the numbers game and plant a bunch of them and see if you can get some past the deer. So this one would be another nice shrub for potential deer bedding. I mean, it does get pretty darn thick, so you probably have to punch some holes in it if you let it go wild, just so the deer can access it. Got some hawthorn on the edge here too. That's probably making it a little bit thicker. But it is a nice potential bedding shrub. I mean, if we look on the inside, you can see in there is some space to move around. But it's also one that you could use as a screening shrub. So could be a couple of really nice benefits for it. But I'll see this one all over the farm. So this is one, once you establish it, it can take off and fill in some space for you if you're looking to add more cover to your property. So definitely a good one to consider. All right, so number 3 is one that if you would have asked me a year ago, I wouldn't have really considered this as one of my top 5s, just because I wasn't paying attention. But after a year of actually opening my eyes to this one really stood out, and it is Bebb's willow. So Bebb's willow, also known as diamond willow, is often used to create really cool walking sticks. But it turns out it's a great species for deer. So my buddy Kurt over at Freedom Acres in Wisconsin actually put me on this one. So he sent me a video of a deer that was standing on its back legs, its head up in a shrub, and just smashing it. And we decided to research what shrub that was, and it was Bebb's willow. A little bit of browse right there. So I started paying attention to the Bebb's willow on our farm, and in the spring this year, all of this stuff, I mean, you can see that it's browsed, but all the Bebb's willow I was finding had very, very heavy deer browse on it. So I started looking into it more, and it turns out it is a great browse species for deer. So if you can get this stuff established, this is one that can feed your deer. And it does create a really big, nice, vibrant bush. I'll see if I find any down by the swamp. That's where I'm going next. I'll show you some of those. But it does make a huge, nice bush. So it'll make good cover. And where I'm standing right now, it's an upland site. Now, you think willow, you think wet. I'm sure it would do best there. But this is just an area that I've let go fallow with the switchgrass. And there's a ton of Bebb's willow popping up here, so it must be one that the birds carry and replant for us. But it's been one the deer just smash. I haven't seen browse on a shrub like I have the Bebb's willow that I've been noticing this spring, just here and on property walks. All right, here's a little better look of what it could look like from a bedding standpoint. You get your Bebb's willow established. This is perfect. If I had a few acres of this would absolutely be deer bedding. Look at these beautiful little canopies. Got some browse underneath here. So this is a spot the deer could crawl up and in. This would make very, very nice bedding. Now this is wet here, so that's probably why these were able to establish, because they're going to grow a lot faster than those upland ones. But look at that nice little Bebb's willow thicket. And it looks this way all the way in this corner of the swamp before it gets really wet. Then it transitions to cattails and stuff like that. But this is right on that transition area, and it looks beautiful. So definitely one you could utilize as a bedding shrub, and you can see it's kind of mixed in where we got some still right in the deer's face. All right, the next one is gray dogwood. This is another beautiful native thicket forming shrub. Again, you can see It's the summer, and there's ample browse on this young dogwood. The deer love it. Great browse species, and makes for nice cover. Now I find it on upland sites quite a bit, but this one does really well in wet areas. You're just going to get a lot faster growth when you plant it in areas that are a little bit damp. This is a swamp transition area, and it is absolutely loaded with gray dogwood. And I do love seeing this. It's that same thicket forming effect. Got the parent tree that was probably over here. And then as we start to leach out towards the swamp edge, you can see the younger plants. And again, heavy browse on this one. This one gets crushed in the winter. So really nice native. Love finding it on properties. Alright, I shouldn't have said that Bebb's willow was the one I've seen the most browse on this year. Gotta give credit where credit's due. Nothing will ever beat red-osier dogwood when it comes to a browse shrub. This stuff is absolute deer candy. And you can see a little bit of browse here on this one so far. But in the winter, this stuff gets crushed. I mean, the deer will eat these twigs down a foot. They just absolutely smoke them. Look at that one right there. That means this was the browse line. So look how thick that is. They browse it way down. This is the ice cream for deer. They love it. Now this one is tough to get established in the actual cover. It's pretty rare that I go to properties where I see red-osier dogwood that would make good viable cover. Even this, I mean, it might look like cover right now, but once the leaves fall off, it doesn't. It's not thick. It's pretty wide open spaces. So not viable cover, but man, you cannot duplicate the level of browse that you will see on your red-osier dogwood. It is a fantastic shrub. It's actually a little bit sweet. If you bust off a piece and chew on it, you can tell why the deer like it. It's not like it tastes good, but it's got a little bit of a sweet tinge to it. You might be able to hear it as I'm walking. It's a little sloppy here. This is the type of area that, sorry, swatting at deer flies, that red-osier dogwood does the best in. You'll see it in these swamps, wetter swamps. This one just is loaded with this shrub. So it's what helps get the deer through the winter here. Great native shrub from a food standpoint. And you can cut these off and take cuttings to establish them. So you can I like to take 2-foot cuttings. You know, I would take something about that size right there, cut 2 feet off, strip off the branches, strip, and then scrape down one side, plant 1 foot deep, and they will establish via cuttings. But this is kind of like plum. I mean, all these you have to protect them, but if you were to leave these wide open, there's no chance you're gonna get them to survive. The deer will kill them. So you need to cage and protect them. They do grow somewhat in an upland site, just slower. They're gonna do best with wet feed. Had to get out of the deer flies, they were awful. So these are all great options. Of course, there's other great shrubs out there as well. If you want to note one, feel free to comment. Let me know shrubs that you really like. These are 5 that have really stood out on our farm. Again, you will need to protect all of these if you want to get them established, but they definitely all have a benefit to the wildlife, and especially for deer habitat. So, all right, y'all take care. God bless.